More than 40% of our residents have received at least their first dose of vaccine, an effort we've been working to support for many months through our Emergency Operations Center, especially in our underserved communities through our community vaccine clinics. Thanks to the hard work of all of you, this has allowed us to begin to responsibly reopen our city. Thank you for wearing your mask. Thank you for your social distancing. And thank you for getting vaccinated. While the rescue phase of this pandemic is slowly coming to a close, the recovery phase at all levels is just beginning. Over the next few months, my administration will be focused on three top priorities as we drive Denver's recovery forward: our economy, our unhoused and unsheltered neighbors, and our overall safety as a community. Without question, we've seen a rising challenge in safety and crime as our cities across the nation. At the same time, we are committed to continuing to improve the way we police our community, reforms that began before George Floyd was murdered, but reforms that are more urgent now than ever before. When it comes to homelessness and housing insecurity, the pandemic has only made matters worse. We are refocusing our efforts in this area as well. But today, we're going to highlight how we intend to get our economy moving for those workers and businesses in sectors that will be foundational to our success in the wake of this pandemic. Thankfully, we now have a president we can partner with. Central to President Biden's recovery plan is an infrastructure package, the size of which we've not seen since the Great Depression. Simply put, infrastructure creates jobs, supports communities, and grows the middle class. We learned that lesson during the Great Recession, when Denver's own infrastructure investments from the Better Denver Bond helped our city emerge even sooner from the downturn that kicked off a decade of opportunity. But the federal government can't rebuild our economy all by itself. So to seize on this unique moment in history and to ensure that we really do build back better and sustain this recovery, we need to leverage the federal government's investment. We need to seize this opportunity to kickstart our recovery and sustain it. The president's message is clear. It's time to go big. Because of careful budget management, our fiscal discipline, and maintaining our reserves near 15%, our city enjoys a AAA bond rating. Unfortunately, we had to use a lot of those reserves during the pandemic to get through those difficult times. And so I've directed the Department of Finance to prioritize replenishing our reserves beginning with next year's budget. That gives us the ability to do what we've done in the past to overcome recessions, asking voters to invest in our future through infrastructure and capital improvement projects. In the coming months, I will be sending a proposal to City Council for a $400 million bond package for referral to the November ballot. Within the current tax rate, this package would invest in the type of infrastructure projects that will create jobs and good jobs that can become meaningful careers for people across our city, accelerate and reinvest in already approved capital projects that have been particularly impacted by the pandemic, and support Denver neighborhoods, communities, and families so we can recover and come back stronger than before, and help our local businesses regain the ground they lost in COVID-19. In the coming weeks, we will be engaging with members of City Council and our residents to help determine what will be included in this package to make the broadest impact across our city, not just in the near term, but for years into the future. But as the president has urged, infrastructure needs to be more than roads and bridges and buildings. And it reflects a shared goal. As we recover from COVID, we recover in a way that addresses fundamental changes in equity, workplace training, and jobs for the future. While we will use the same tools to build back better from this recession, we will use them differently to address the unique situation before us. We know all too well that this pandemic has hit certain industries and their workers the hardest. Industries like construction, restaurants, hospitality, and tourism. These are some of our most historically marginalized workers, and they took it in the teeth with higher unemployment and lower job opportunities. Coming out of this, to the tune of an 11% decline in these jobs mostly filled by people of color and women. Equity in this recovery will mean prioritizing their recovery first and foremost. With the funding Denver will receive from the American Rescue Plan, we will restore essential city services that were cut over the past year, and we will make key investments in the human infrastructure that supports people and families. We will close that digital divide with quality, convenient internet to provide more and cheaper access and support children and families who struggled while learning and working from home. We will strengthen families and communities with expanded child care and financial support for workers and businesses as people return to the workplace. We will help our local businesses like hard-hit restaurants by continuing Denver's outdoor patio expansion program all the way through October of 2022. We will help people train for careers, not just jobs in our new emerging industries like clean energy and climate action. And as in the past, we will leverage the economic power of Denver International Airport. The airport leadership team is busy preparing a continued investment in this world-class facility and infrastructure, boosting customer experience, improving safety for all passengers, and harnessing its global competitiveness. In the coming months, we will also execute on plans to develop expanded partnerships with the airlines and concessionaires. This is the kind of human infrastructure that builds futures, builds economic sustainability, and builds equities. These and more are the tools we will deploy to help Denver build back better, stronger, and more equitable. Our goal in recovery is to surpass where we were before COVID-19, set us back, to build back in a way that creates a broader foundation for more people to prosper and seize opportunities. In the coming days and weeks, we will have more on our economic recovery efforts, as well as how we'll be addressing public safety and new investments in services for unhoused residents and those in need of more affordable housing. From the president to the governor and state legislature to right here in Denver, every level of government is moving swiftly and boldly to get this country, our state, and our city back to work. We've faced these challenges before and come back stronger. And you know what? We're going to do it again. I look forward to engaging with our residents on what's to come, hearing their feedback and their proposals, and getting our city up and running. I'm now going to turn it over to Eric Haraga. Eric is Executive Director of Denver's Economic Development and Opportunity Division to provide more of these economic recovery strategies. Eric?
Thank you, Mayor, and good morning to you all. Just over a year ago, Denver held the crown as one of the nation's most prosperous cities, and following the Great Recession, Denver had one of the strongest economic recoveries in the U.S. In 2011, Mayor Hancock inherited the great task of managing this recovery, and that wisdom, along with lessons learned, give us great confidence that we will once again emerge strong. Pre-pandemic, Denver's unemployment rate was one of the lowest in the nation at 2.8%. By April of 2020, Denver's unemployment peaked at 13.4%. Almost immediately, we began to see devastation to industries like hospitality, leisure, many small locally owned businesses, and construction. Many industries impacted employ our lowest wage workers and a high percentage of communities of color. We started our path to relief and recovery a year ago with the launch of the Mayor's Economic Relief and Recovery Council, comprised of over 100 businesses and community leaders across the city and across industry sectors. The council was chaired by Lori Davis of Grant Thornton and worked collaboratively, coordinating with public and private efforts to provide over $31 of immediate relief. There are many signals pointing to a strong recovery for Denver. We see our businesses reopening, consumer confidence is rebounding, and Denver continues to attract workers and businesses. Most importantly, Denver will see an influx over the next few years to support our economic recovery. Of note are the funds coming through the American Recovery Plan, the state stimulus plan, and additional city investments. All these are great signs, but we must do more. and more equitably to see a true recovery. As Mayor Hancock alluded to, we are here today to introduce the pillars of our economic strategy, recovery strategy. We've named this effort RISE, Denver, which stands for Rebuilding for an Inclusive and Sustainable Economy. When we set out to create this strategic framework, we set a bold vision to meet and surpass pre-crisis economic activity while ensuring the benefits of prosperity reach the entire population, including our historically marginalized and most under-resourced residents and businesses. The disruptions to the economy have not affected everyone equally, and our commitment to equity is that we will provide relief for those businesses, workers, and communities that have been hit the hardest and create an economy that works for everyone. We've landed on the following 5 strategic principles that will inform the focus of our recovery work. The 5 strategic priorities center around creating jobs, supporting individuals, business and nonprofits, lifting up Denver's neighborhoods, making it easier to do business with Denver, and accelerating public investment. Let's dive into the strategies. Employment is key to economic recovery, and our goal is to get back to a healthy unemployment level by the end of 2022. To reach a healthy level of unemployment and to continue expanding our economy, Denver needs to create at least 40,000 jobs. And to do so, the private, public, and nonprofit sectors must all work together. We will connect job seekers to the training and supports needed for careers in industries where there is growth in Denver. This will help bolster our most under-resourced populations in their ability to build generational wealth. As people get back to work, we know some children are cared for by family, friends, neighbors, or other informal care providers. These caregivers provide quality, affordable care for the families they serve, and we are pursuing funding to help support them. This year, the Climate Protection Fund will invest in weatherization and energy efficiency projects in affordable housing. This program will reduce costs for residents and improve the air quality inside their homes and create valuable trade jobs and contracting opportunities for small, minority, and women-owned businesses. Recently, there have been 3 announcements of business expansions into Denver, bringing over 1,000 jobs. These wins speak to the importance of doubling down on our already strong business attraction and retention efforts. Our second strategy is to strengthen small business and nonprofit growth and resiliency. We know that entrepreneurship and small business drive growth in times of economic downturn, and we must continue nurturing our new and growing firms. We will be intentional as we provide supports to businesses and nonprofits that are feeling the most impact. We know that lease payments, increased property taxes, and the need for enhanced safety are all challenges for small businesses trying to survive. We are exploring the expansion of our Business Impact Opportunity Fund to help alleviate some of this while continuing our support of businesses who are affected by city infrastructure projects. Moving on, we must re-energize our neighborhoods through events, arts, and cultural activities. We are considering neighborhood activation grants for community-serving organizations, as we know this tactic activates spending in our economy. Additionally, we plan to increase direct support to residents as we've done throughout the pandemic in the form of cash payments as well as mortgage and utility support. To the mayor's point about digital equity, we're continually working to make high-speed internet accessible to all families, from expanding Wi-Fi at public locations, working with partners to provide internet subsidies, to expanding a laptop and hotspot use program to help job seekers in many of our under-resourced neighborhoods. Moving on to the 4th strategy, we are going to make it easier to do business with Denver. We have been listening, and we recognize that many of our processes and programs are not easy to navigate. We are identifying policies and other regulations that create barriers for small business and residents. A common theme that has resonated is the need for liaisons between the city and businesses and/or residents who may not have the resources to otherwise expedite their projects. And this last and final point speaks to the acceleration of public investment, as it is crucial for a swift recovery. Public investment not only creates jobs and encourages investment from the private sector, but also provides support and unites our communities and supports minority and women-owned businesses, builds a talented workforce, and activates a physical environment to position Denver for success. We have several capital projects in process that will not only infuse dollars into our economy, but also create a huge amount of opportunity for Denver businesses and job seekers. As we aspire to drive unemployment down to pre-pandemic levels, these projects will sustain and create thousands of jobs in Denver. This is just the beginning of our multi-agency effort to ensuring Denver will have one of the strongest economic recoveries in the nation. There is a lot of work to do, and we look forward to engaging with the community moving forward. So with that, I will hand it to Brendan Hanlon, the city's Chief Financial Officer, to talk about our financial plan for recovery. Brendan?
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Mayor. Good morning. My name is Brendan Hanlon. I'm the city's Chief Financial Officer, here to talk about our financial plan that will support our recovery. Financially, Denver is on a strong trajectory to be able to address our immediate needs and fund our long-term recovery, even throughout the challenges we have faced over the past 13 to 14 months in our financials. This has been reaffirmed by our bond rating agencies, who have reaffirmed our AAA standing and have done so because of our proactive financial management, as well as maintaining 12% reserves in 2020 with the goal of doing so in 2022, and a plan to rebuild those reserves in 2022 and 2023 and beyond. We have multiple financial tools at our disposal over the coming months and years. In May, we're going to be working with City Council to issue another round of COVID relief funds that were awarded to the city in 2020. This will be our 5th round of funding and will support communities and businesses across the city, as well as emergency response. In May, we also expect to receive funds from the federal government around the American Rescue Plan. I'll talk more about that in a little bit. These funds will be available to the city through 2024. In 2021, we will continue to deploy the voter-approved Elevate Denver bond program to complete community-selected projects across the city, and the Elevate Denver bond funds will be available to us throughout 2026. And today, the mayor announced our initiation of a new GO program of $400 million that would be referred to voters this November. Those funds will be used to help sustain and create jobs, address our infrastructure backlog, and match any additional funds that become available by the federal government this summer. It is exceptionally important that we continue this trajectory that is positioned us so well in the past to recover economically. The value of going for a new GO bond program and infrastructure programs is significant, and it is built off of lessons learned from the Great Recession and before. Since the pandemic began, 73% of Colorado jurisdictions are deferring or canceling projects to save money in their budgets. Regional construction employment has begun to stagnate, and Metro Denver was the 5th highest region in the nation for construction job losses. Infrastructure investments need to be invested in and initiated to prepare our local economy to sustain and create jobs, and that work needs to begin now. For every $10 million spent on construction, 130 jobs are created, and those workers receive $8.5 million in labor income. For that $10 million investment, there's a $20 million economic output, doubling the initial investment. We have done a lot of work already in engaging our community on developing projects. We are not going to start from the beginning. We will look at the 5,000 projects that are contained within our current 6-year plan. Those projects total nearly $4 billion worth of opportunities for us to invest in. Those proposals were originated from our Elevate Denver program totaling 4,000 projects. And last year's six-year plan, capital improvement plan update identified an additional 1,000 projects. We have engaged city agencies and city council to start determining those priority projects, and those infrastructure investments will include workforce investments. So no matter the program or asset that we will select, workforce will be a major tenant of our GO bond program and will be a major tenant of any federal funding infrastructure that we will be receiving. Community facilities will also be a major tenant, including libraries, rec centers, and other community infrastructure. Our transportation network and mobility safety programs like Vision Zero. And we will also be looking at city facilities, specifically those that are focused on cultural and tourism-related economic activities, seeing that these were the most impacted during the last 13 months. We will use the information collected from our community to date and add public engagement sessions in May to inform the 2021 ballot measure. Now, to speak about the American Rescue Plan. The federal government has announced the American Rescue Plan, and the President signed this plan a few months ago, and we expect those funds to be made available to Denver in the coming weeks. The Denver is expecting to receive between $140 and $311 million, and we are going to be receiving guidance as to how those funds are going to be used during this time period. We will be receiving 2 allocations of funding, one allocation in 2021, half of those funds, and another half in 2022. And we will be using those to focus on our recovery as well as service restoration. But the American Rescue Plan and the local dollars are just a small component of this story. When you look at the investment nationally, that local support is only 7.3% of the total funding allocation provided for in the American Rescue Plan. There are dozens of other programs that could be applied for by the state, by municipalities, by businesses and communities directly. And those programs focus on housing, support for people experiencing homelessness, public health, economic recovery, community support, individual support, schools, infrastructure, and transit. This is a once-in-a-generational opportunity for investment in our community, and it will be critical to capture our community's priorities. In May, we will begin a process to intake data and ideas from City Council, neighborhoods, residents, and businesses. The administration has initiated a plan for the use of these federal funds. This will be restoring city services, as I mentioned before, programs like large item pickup. We will restart the hiring of vacant positions that were held vacant due to balancing our budget over the past 13 months. We will continue to fund vaccination clinics and vaccination outreach efforts and other public health measures, and support the economic recovery through the programs that support our residents, support under-resourced people and communities, local small businesses, and train in employing our city's workforce. We have also engaged agencies and City Council to begin determining recovery priorities around support for individuals like rent and utility assistance, support for neighborhoods in terms of neighborhood infrastructure, small business support, and then developing our workforce through infrastructure investments. This is a strong support for further developing Denver's Construction Careers Program and scaling the program to meet the demands of the recovery. This was a program that we did not have available to us during the Great Recession, and is a program that we need to lean into at this point in time. As we learn more about these programs and hear more from our community, we will have more communication around specific investment plans. We will also be convening a stimulus advisory committee, and that's because today's announcement is not the end of a process, it is the beginning of a process. We have been contacting other jurisdictions throughout the country, guidance from other national experts, and the advice that has been provided over and over again is that this is a generational opportunity. You need to engage your community in this conversation to make sure you understand what their investment priorities are. We have begun to plan our efforts with city agencies and council around this outreach process. The Stimulus Advisory Committee will also convene a group of multi-agency local partners to talk about funding opportunities that are shared jointly between local jurisdictions, and local organizations. So think of Denver Housing Authority, Denver Health, RTD. Where can we leverage funds that we will all receive individually together to make the most impact in our community? We will also start in May community and business engagement processes to ensure that we are getting input from those most affected by the pandemic. Next steps. Let's talk about next steps for a moment. So we expect to receive guidance from the federal government on the American Rescue Plan by May 11th. That will inform both the amount of funds we get as well as the guidance that we will receive as to where those dollars will be allowed to be spent. We will also be, around that time, convening the Stimulus Advisory Committee to then kick off that process to convene our local partners, but also have a community and business outreach at the same time. We will be holding public meetings in a virtual fashion. We're going to be trying to make sure that we have as many different ways of engaging with our community, considering that we are in a very different posture and we are not going to be able to meet in person as we have in the past. But we're going to do that around business supports, community supports, and infrastructure investments. Over the coming weeks, we will deploy another round of our coronavirus relief funds to the community in partnership with City Council. We are also very hopeful of an announcement around the American Jobs Plan this summer, which will invest more in our infrastructure, not just in Denver, but in the region and across the country. If those funds, if approved, will bolster our economic recovery and the local investments we intend to make in our 21st century infrastructure. And please, please, take away from my talking points, infrastructure includes the workforce that is used to deliver that infrastructure investment. As I mentioned, these combined resources will take more than once, it's a once-in-a-generation opportunity, and we will make sure that we are applying an equity lens to these investments as we go through this process over the coming weeks and months. We will partner with City Council, community leaders, and organizations to gather new input from the community and inform our investment priorities. And we intend to refer the measure for the GO bond, that $400 million investment, to voters in the summer to be on the ballot this November to support our long-term financial sustainability. Denver is on the cusp of a strong recovery, backed by a strong financial plan that leverages state, federal, and local resources. We will capture the voices of many, and we will use our equity principles to create an equitable recovery for all Denver residents. Thank you. I'd like to turn it back over to the mayor.
Thank you, Brendan. We're going to go to question and answer, but let me just simply say that I hope that you heard a resounding theme here in our economic recovery. One, we felt it important to share with the public, with all of you, how we plan to move forward in our economic recovery as a city, not just depending on the federal government or the state, but Denver doing what Denver has always done, and that is to be aggressive and thoughtful and innovative as it meets those opportunities along with the other levels of government. That we're also going to be focusing on as priorities: human resource investment, and of course the physical infrastructure investment of our city. And so with that, let's turn it over to Q&A, and we'll try to answer some of your questions.
All right, thanks so much, Mayor. I'm going to go ahead and just go down the list that we took earlier. So Vinny, let's start with you. Vinny from Bloomberg. And remember to *6 to unmute yourselves when it's your turn to ask a question. Vinny, do you have a question? How about Esteban?
This has been.
Oh, go ahead, Vinny. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, that took a little bit of a delay there. This is Vinny Del-Giudice from Bloomberg News in Denver. Mayor, of the $400 million bond offering you're planning for the November 2021 ballot, at this point, will this be a single $400 million general obligation offering, or will it be cut into smaller offerings? And at this point, what do you see this money going toward? I know you have, you're early in the process. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Vinny. And I'll also ask Brendan if he has any additional value to add in this answer, but it's one single general obligation bond offering that will represent a compilation of infrastructure investment projects throughout the city. I think, as Brendan pointed out, we have a $4 billion backlog in capital investment, capital projects. And this investment allow us at least take 10% to begin investing to sustain our economic recovery, creating jobs, but also, again, to meet the significance of this moment with potential federal dollars flowing in and our local investment happening. We get a chance to match. We also get a chance to supplement some of their investments and complete certain capital projects. Anything additional?
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for the question. I think it's important to remember that we go through a community process to help select those projects and that project list. My guess is that we will likely end up with multiple questions on the ballot per table requirements, but the Mayor is absolutely right. This is an opportunity to think about leveraging other folks' dollars, not just the GO bond, and looking for those multi-partner investments, even with a tool that we traditionally use just to fund our own infrastructure. This federal program is a tremendous opportunity for us to leverage.
And Vinny, just to summarize, I think the best way to sum this up is Denver is not looking to be done to, we're looking to be do with our partners going forward. Go ahead.
May I add a follow-up up there?
Go
Yes.
ahead, Vinny.
Okay, thank you. Mayor, is the economy at this point in better shape than you would have imagined a year ago when the pandemic struck? It was quite a dark period. And if so, why? Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment, Vinny. We are doing better than I would have anticipated because there were some pretty dark moments during the 2020 season of the pandemic. I think that has a lot to do with the resiliency of the people of Denver, and certainly our early engagement of business and civic members of our community in our Economic Relief and Recovery Council that really leaned in and helped us to think innovatively of how we can navigate the protocols and challenges of the pandemic, but also keep some of our small businesses with a lifeline, some sense of a pulse during all of this. They were tremendous in helping us do that. And I think, and Brendan can probably respond to this, they helped us to capture or to save millions, and I'm talking tens of millions of dollars in business activity that otherwise would have been shut down during the pandemic had we not been able to engage them. Brendan?
The mayor is yet again spot on. Personally, I was concerned in the late fall and the winter months about the trajectory of the increase in cases, but I think we've seen that moderation, and I'm taking a lot of confidence in the fact that vaccinations have been on the rise and is giving the community a tremendous a boost in terms of their confidence to transact economically. But we still have a lot more work to do, and that's why I think we're leaning in on this plan, and we're learning from the lessons of the past 13 and 14 months.
I think also you can certainly point again to the people of Denver doing what was necessary to get through the pandemic. That allows us to open up sooner and in a more robust manner going forward. But also, I think let's not forget the fiscal policies, and I want you to hear this, that we have sustained over the years, that we save 15% of our revenues, and that we planned for a rainy day. Who knew how deep this would be? And it was those revenues that got us through it. I'm sorry, Teresa, go ahead.
No, thank you, Mayor. Esteban, do you have any questions?
Hi, this is. Can you hear me?
We've got you now. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. Hi, this is Esteban with Denverite and Colorado Public Radio. Can someone provide some examples of what infrastructure projects will be funded by the bond package? Are these new projects? Are they existing projects? And how many jobs approximately will be created by the package? I know that there was that 40,000 figure that the city is aiming for. How many jobs will be created?
Sure. This is Brendan Hanlon, the city's chief financial officer. A few questions there. So in one of my slides, I made sure to reference our 6-year plan. That is the plan that has 5,000 projects on it. That is the foundation of our talking point or our starting point with our community. This is going to be a community outreach process. We're really not here today to announce a series of projects. We're here to announce the beginning of a process to get input to then refer a measure to City Council and then to the ballot. We will run the math on the jobs, but we're looking at thousands of jobs that would be created by this $400 million investment. But again, I have to stress, we're looking for opportunities to leverage other entities' monies as part of this package. So I think the $400 million proposal is simply a starting point. If we are then able to unlock federal infrastructure investments that will multiply that investment even further. So it is the beginning. We are leaning into this conversation, but it is the beginning of what we hope is a partnership with state and federal government as well.
And if I could too, just remind our journalists on the line that we are going to have a more in-depth follow-up roundtable with our executive team following this press event. Next up is Elena. Elena Alvarez, do you have any questions for the mayor or for Eric or Brendan? We'll move down to Conrad from the Post.
Yeah, thanks, Teresa. Hey, this is Conrad with the Denver Post. This question, I guess, is for either the mayor or Brendan. Can I get either or both of you to elaborate just a little bit on how you arrived at that $400 million mark before we really understand what type of projects are going to be proposed from the bond issuance? And then why do that now when federal money through the American Rescue Plan is going to be expected through 2024? We still have money from Elevate Denver that's coming in through 2027. Are those not enough, I guess? Is that the best way to phrase it?
Yeah. I'm going to let Brendan come on and talk about our financial capacity, Conrad. By the way, great question. Great series of questions. There's a lot there, and I want to encourage you to come to the roundtable because we can dig deeper into that. But let me tell you as the mayor why I believe it's important that we move forward with a potential bond question in November. One, yes, we have the Elevate Denver bond program going forward, but we also got to sustain this recovery. And one of the more brilliant things that happened in 2007, 2008 was Denver's commitment at that time to a $500 million bond program. And as we recovered, it was that bond program that really gave Denver the boost in terms of construction activity and the whole ecosystem of the construction industry that was invested in. For every dollar, you got $2 of investment and creating jobs. At one point around 2009, 2010, Denver was the #1 city in the country for construction activities and construction jobs. And it fueled, if you will, our rise, our recovery from the recession and allowed us to maintain that momentum. What this does, it takes us from a 2027 destination with Elevate Denver bond and extends that investment past 2031, which is going to be critical for sustainability, but I'm also going to give you the word equity as well. And so this is allowing us to invest in people, our neighborhoods, and again, to begin to chip away, I'll bet, in a small manner at that large capital list that we have as a backlog.
Thanks, Mayor. Brendan Hanlon, the city's chief financial officer again. So excellent question. It's one that I have heard. Again, this is leveraging the opportunity and the successes that we have had in the past with a program like this. It is also unlocking federal funds when it comes to matching requirements. One of the things I had not mentioned during my PowerPoint presentation is the possibility of a 25% match from local communities to match funds. These funds would allow us to then unlock federal dollars as well. So I'm going to continue to harp on leveraging these dollars as an opportunity. And frankly, the stats that I shared earlier about 73% of municipal projects being canceled, are the city, the metro area is the 5th highest impacted metro area in the country on construction jobs. Now is the time to lean in. Now is the time to repeat the lessons that we learned and worked so well in the past. So we're trying to make sure that we leverage that specific jobs opportunity. You're right that there's opportunities with the American Rescue Plan as well, but remember, we don't know what that dollar figure is. We don't know what the guidance is yet. We are going to be funding a number of the projects that Eric has programs that Eric mentioned as part of our RISE plan through this process after community engagement occurs. But we need to make sure that we're leaning in now, because in order to refer something to the ballot, we have to put this in front of City Council in the summer, and it would have to be voted on by November of this year. If we wait, that recovery will just wait a year longer, and we don't have the time. We don't have the time to wait on that recovery.
Thanks, Brendan. Go ahead, Eric.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Brendan. Just would also like to really emphasize the workforce development aspect of this opportunity here. We are better prepared than we were pre-pandemic. We have our construction careers program, which is currently in pilot mode, but we really want to make that permanent and really ensures Denver residents have the opportunity, get the skills and training to work on these city projects. So it's really doubling down. And we talk about the multiplier effect. It's not only that direct impact of those dollars, of that bond issuance, but it's the indirect and induced impact, the impact to our residents, getting these jobs, and furthermore, opportunity for our minority small businesses, women-owned small businesses as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Okay,
Hey,
Hannah.
Teresa, real quick, can I follow up?
I'm gonna ask you, hang on one second, Conrad. I'm gonna ask you, we only have a few more minutes left in this event, so I'm gonna ask you to save the rest of your questions so I can get to everyone else for our noon press avail. If Hannah from the Gazette has a question, I want to give her an opportunity.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can, go ahead.
Hi, so there's a big emphasis on equity in the recovery plan. Can you expand on how the RISE plan is going to specifically target women and people of color?
Thank you, Hannah. I just spoke about one element being the workforce and really having a direct impact on our residents. But I think if you look at really, this was a multi-agency effort. Not all of these programs are within the portfolio of economic development, but we really vetted and sorted and worked with the Office of Race and Social Justice, other offices, and really put equity at the forefront of every program. Mentioned really the impact to our Division of Small Business Opportunity. We recently had a change in our ordinance to really create and expand the number of certified companies. So as we have these infrastructure projects, more Denver companies will be really have opportunities to be a part of these future projects. And those are two programs within my portfolio. But, you know, I think the mayor spoke about climate action, sustainability and resilience office and some of their program offerings. Really, there's a high focus on really the communities, the neighborhoods, the under-resourced populations that need those services the most. And there's so many programs to talk about, but it's a value in every priority that we're bringing forward. And we'll have a lot more great ideas as we expand and talk to the community as Brendan had presented.
Let me just add that not only did the pandemic hit people of color hard when it came to the physical and the health aspects of the pandemic, but also economically. And a lot of the small businesses, particularly those owned by people of color, were devastated during the pandemic. They were the first to fold, the first to feel the impacts. And I got to tell you that what we saw pre-pandemic was a tremendous economic growth, but it was a very unequal economic growth. And one of the things that we're all committed to as we go forward and get a chance to rebuild our economy is to make it more equitable, or at least to work very hard to build back better and to build back more equitable. And this gives us an opportunity to expand those opportunities for those small, medium-sized women and minority-owned businesses going forward. And we're committed to it. It is something that is being woven through every step that we take in this recovery and rebuilding our economy. Teresa?
Mayor, thanks. I want to get to Ed from the DBJ. Ed, do you have a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Did we lose you?
About that,
Try one more time, Ed.
okay, so sorry about that. Yeah, maybe this is Eric or maybe this is for the mayor, but you mentioned the idea of small business focus. Are you just talking about more grants like were given out during the pandemic, or are you looking for more sustainable long-range changes, such as tax or regulatory changes that you'll be doing to help small businesses?
So we have a variety of products out there, but one is our Business Impact Opportunity Fund, and that's one program that we think we can expand. As businesses are experiencing lease renewals, higher leases, increased property taxes, or even safety concerns where they need help with security systems, and really looking at some of neighborhoods that are changing, we're seeing displacement of businesses. So we really want to amplify that program. That one is a short-term grant. We also have ideas on deck, and like Brendan had mentioned, this is kind of a kickoff to our engagement process, but different products out there. We can amplify and expand our revolving loan program, and there's other ideas out there as well. So I think you're correct in saying, yeah, there are short-term levers that we can pull, but we also need to look at some longer-term products.
And that was a great question, and along with Eric, this is a process. This is today's announcement of our focus, and to let folks know that we are on post with regard to the economic recovery of our city. And so this evolving process is going to allow us to address ongoing basis a lot of these opportunities that we're working to create here, but also take advantage of. And with regards to women and minority-owned businesses, we are not done. We do expect that more effort and more products and opportunities, innovation will come to what we're trying to do to service them and provide those opportunities.
We have about 2 minutes left in this session, so I want to get to Liz from Channel 7. Liz, do you have anything?
Hi, yes, I do have a question.
Go ahead, Liz.
We lost you for a second, Liz. We'll come back to you. Let's go to Gabrielle at Fox 31. Gabrielle, do you have a question? Remember to *6 to unmute yourselves. Liz, you want to try one more time? No Liz, no Gabrielle. We'll give Elena Alvarez one more shot. Elena, are you there?
Can you hear me now? Sorry.
That's okay. We got you. Go ahead, Liz.
Okay, yeah, I was wondering, and I know you touched on this a little bit, but obviously with the bond, that bolsters jobs and construction, but how could the city help other hard-hit industries like you mentioned, restaurant industry, hospitality, tourism? How does that help, those groups?
Yeah, I'll ask Eric and Brendan may have some comments on this, but I think the way to look at this is not one-offs, but as a system that we're trying to impact. The reality is if you are creating construction efforts in the city of Denver and addressing key strategic projects such as 16th Street Mall, Convention Center, those projects leverage and invite new tourism opportunities as well as investments in hotels, people sleeping in our hotels, restaurants are vibrant. They all work within a system. And so that's why we're making strategic investments in Convention Center, 16th Street Mall, Denver International Airport, improving our roads, focusing on safety and security of the city, addressing those who are experiencing homelessness and unhoused in our community. All those are part of a system. If you don't address them with an understanding that they work together, then with one of them being out of whack, you impact the entire system. And so that's why these infrastructure investment projects are critical, because we're talking about transit, we're talking about ease in which you traverse the city. That brings tourism. That brings investment in the city. That brings people who want to live in your city, who want to bring their businesses in the city. It all works in tandem for us. And so we see this as a system going forward. Either one, you want to make comment on that as well?
So in addition to some of the industries we talked about, there is a focus on helping hospitality and leisure. We're working right now to really expand our partnerships, whether it's Colorado Restaurant Association or the Colorado Events Association. We know that individuals have been impacted. So we are working across industry sectors as much as possible. And then we have some more general products that's available to any industry.
We'll try one more time. This will be the last question. Elena, go ahead. You still there, Elena? Do we have you? Well, the good news is we have another avail coming up just after this one.
Yes.
Mayor, I'll let you go ahead and close us out.
Thank you, Teresa. We want to thank everyone for joining us today. Obviously, we look forward to the summer. There's a lot going on in the city. The city is picking up its energy and excitement for the summer, and a lot of the industries that were hurt during the pandemic are beginning to come back. Of course, we look forward to July 13th when we have our All-Star game, the Major League Baseball All-Star game coming to the Mile High City. And we again want to thank our partners, the Colorado Rockies and Visit Denver and the state for helping to make that happen. We want to encourage folks to join the roundtable that will take place at noon today virtually. We will have, of course, Brendan and Eric, as well as other officials who will ask even deeper questions, as you prefer, on these issues that we've talked about today as it relates to Denver's economic recovery. Again, thank you all for joining us. Have a great day. See you at noon.